Nagasaki Commemoration for the atomic bomb. It is sponsored tonight by Minneapolis St. Hiroshima and Nagasaki Commemoration and the St. Paul Nagasaki sister city, as well as Women Against Military Madness. Thank you for wearing your masks and practicing social distancing as much as you can. Unfortunately, the weather is not allowing for much social distancing. I'd like to acknowledge that we are standing on land that used to be the Dakota American Indian tribes land. So I just want to make sure that we're respectful to the place that we are at and the original owners, caretakers, thank you. We have a pandemic, and we are dealing with a lot of systematic racism and civil unrest just a couple of months after the death of George Floyd. So I think it's a really important time to practice peace and to really kind of reflect and remember, how do we practice peace? Greg, thank you for the wonderful music. And he also allowed us to use a pre-recorded, for a pre-recorded version that's actually on YouTube, and you can go and watch it. Greg's music is also featured on that as well. You can also find the video on the SPNSCC website and the WHAM, is it WHAM? Facebook pages as well. Around the labyrinth, you see some of the panels all around in the circle along this side here. These are all ribbon panels that make up the Peace Ribbon Minnesota 2020. Under the leadership of Caren individuals and families have been making similar to the ones made in the 1985 Peace Ribbon that wrapped around the Pentagon. We have a greeting first from Takayuki Miyanishi, the president of the Nagasaki St. Paul sister city. And we will have his speech right here. And just kind of imagine being in Nagasaki, perhaps under the camphor trees that survived the atomic bombing.
Hello, our friends in St. Paul. This year celebrates the 65th anniversary of Sister City Exchange between Nagasaki and St. Paul. Thank you for having the Nagasaki Commemoration on August 9th, Japan time. Recently, a picture book, A Bowl Full of Peace, by Caren Stelson with illustration by Akira Kusaka was officially launched, and it has started to talk Sachiko Koyasui's experience of Nagasaki atomic bomb to young people. This evening, I would like to talk about camphor trees in Nagasaki. Two camphor trees and the Sano Shinto Shrine in Nagasaki miraculously survived the atomic bomb of August 9, 1945. We call it the Hibaku Kusu as symbols telling us the resilience to the serious incident and the importance of life. In fall of year 2004, members of Nagasaki St. Paul Sister City Committee collected about 1,000 seeds from the Hibakusu. Half of the seeds were sent to our sister city St. Paul, and the remaining seeds were distributed to those who are willing to grow them in Japan. I'm now standing in front of one of those growing trees planted by the student group Kusu at Nagasaki University in 2005. The tree is now 15 years old and showing its existence, the meaning of passing on life to those who are studying at the university. It might not happen often, but the tree has split into the two main stems at its middle. The tip ends reaches at nearly the same height. All leaves are breathing and looking for a better sunlight. When we installed a memorial plate of the tree last year, I talked to my students that configuration of the tree might show a pivotal moment of our lives, where we need to choose one of the two routes to proceed, left or right. After years, we may recall the moment and think, what if we have chosen the other route? The course here shows our goal will be achieved at its best if we keep looking for a higher point. What we need to do is to think carefully whichever to choose and do the best toward to the direction of our choice. No need to wander. I don't know whether the two hibakusu at the Sun Shrine are the siblings, but the fact is both have survived the atomic bomb and keep sending us message of peace. What we learn from any matter may be a reflection of our thoughts. Perhaps we like to be a good thinker. Thank you very much. Takayuki Miyanishi.
As President Miyanishi mentioned, it is the 65th anniversary of our sister cities. And we have asked Mayor Melvin Carter to speak a few words. He couldn't be here tonight, but we do have Miriam DeMello, who is a liaison for the sister cities of St. Paul, who has come to speak on behalf of Mayor Carter.
Well, good evening, everyone. I'm really happy to see such a great turnout here today. Thank you for coming. Thank you for being brave and coming despite the weather. I know so many people worked really, really hard to put this event together and, celebrate our relationship with our sister city of Nagasaki. Thank you, Miss Joanne Blatchley and Maggie, for putting on this event. I know you both worked very, very hard to facilitate this event, and I know Mayor Carter is sending his greetings, and he's really upset that he couldn't make it due to scheduling conflict, but he wanted me to share a quick message with all of you today. As we mark the 65th year of our sister city relationship with Nagasaki, we are proud and grateful for our historical exchange of connection and culture between the two cities, which bridge the world between us. Especially amid this global pandemic that has separated from people we live right next door to us, it's important that we continue to think about how spiritually connected with one another across our neighborhoods and across the globe we are. The symbols of our lasting friendship, such as the Constellation Earth sculpture in the Nagasaki Peace Park and the generous gift of the cherry trees at our Como Park, are lasting symbols and lasting reminders of our community and commitment to unity. As we mark 75 years since the Nagasaki bombing at the Global Harmony Labyrinth in Como Park here today, and share the stories and history of those lives who have forever changed by such a tragic event, let us recommit ourselves to unity. Let us recommit ourselves to peace. On behalf of all of us here in St. Paul, we stand together with you physically distant, but socially connected in our fight for human dignity, in our fight for harmony, in our fight for peace across the entire globe. Thank you so much for being, and thank you so much for this long-standing relationship we share. We look forward to here in St. Paul another 65 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Miriam. Okay, this is the 13th anniversary of doing the Nagasaki Commemoration event. And one of the things that we've done every single year, one of our traditions, is that we have read On That Summer Day, which is a picture book about the day of the atomic bombing. And to read that today, we have Katie Fournier and Larry Johnson. And On That Summer Day was written by Shomei Yo. And it tells the story, as I said, of August 9th. It is narrated by the city of Nagasaki, and, as I said, was a tradition.
This is not the sound system that Joanne had planned. That had to fail because of the weather. But I'm going to also make a pitch for storytelling. We lost the enormous budget for peacemaking when the world began, so we got to be ready for anything. And on Thursday at the Peace Park, our granddaughter's been telling the Sadako story with Elaine, and she was sick, so I stepped in. And when you're telling the story, not reading it, if your glasses fog up from the mask, it doesn't matter, but I think it's going away. Okay. And I am the town of Nagasaki. I have always opened my arms to newcomers, century after century. This has been my expression of love.
August 9th, 1945. A clear sky. Puffs of white cloud drift high overhead. Another hot summer day. The huge old camphor trees are rich with leaves. Their branches vibrate with the cries of the cicadas and sway with passing breezes. And in their cool shade, an elderly woman plays with her grandchild.
It is summer vacation and the schools are closed. The air raid alarm was lifted, and so the children are playing, some at home, some on sidewalks, some in the yards, playgrounds and in front of air raid shelters. Others are splashing in ponds and streams, clad only in their underwear. The war continues. But it is quiet in Nagasaki. The adults have gone off to work, and teenagers are working as mobilized laborers in the factories. A large number of medical students are attending a lecture at the college.
Young mothers are coddling their infants or giving them milk. At 11 o'clock on this tranquil summer morning, glancing up, people see the great patches of blue sky amid the clouds. And just then, a single airplane appears.
Looking down from an altitude of 33,000 feet, the crew caught a glimpse of Nagasaki between a crack that opened up just there in the sea of clouds. Then the B-29 boxcar, imitating the Enola Gay that flew to Hiroshima, dropped the second atomic bomb. The atomic bomb, nicknamed Fat Man, plunges downward toward the city of Nagasaki, where people are spending a calm summer day, knowing nothing of what is about to happen.
11:02 a.m. Flash! A blinding light, brighter than the sun, envelops the city of Nagasaki. And in an instant, everything in the hypocenter disappears from the face of the earth. Boom! Crash! A thunderous blast shakes the city, crushing people, animals, buildings, trees, and everything else under a ferocious shockwave.
In the wake, the city is strangely quiet. Tens of thousands of people are already dead, killed instantly by the flash, the heat, and the blast. Thousands more lie motionless in the rubble, horribly injured, dying, still not knowing what on earth happened.
The noon sky is as dark as dusk, and the sun hangs in the sky like a reddish-black ball. Everything on the ground has been torn apart and scattered. An entire neighborhood has vanished. A tremendous mushroom cloud climbs up in the sky and casts a dark shadow over the earth.
Then, all at once, tongues of fire begin to dart amid the debris. Soon the whole neighborhood is engulfed in a sea of fire, and the victims trapped under the debris and the victims suffering from terrible burns are all burned alive. Groans and whimpers and cries for help echo in the air, tainted with ash, dust, and soot, and with invisible but deadly radiation. It's a living hell on earth, never seen before by human eyes.
It hurts so much. I'm afraid.
Mother, Mother, where are you? Please help me. My arms, my legs, it's hot. It's so hot. Water, please give me some water. People with terrible burns, covered in blood, stumble naked through the dark smoking rubble, trying to flee to safety. Overwhelmed by heat and thirst, they throw themselves into rivers, ponds, and rice paddies and die, piled up one upon another, amid the churning fire and smoke and here and there showers of black rain. Fathers, mothers, sisters, brothers, grandparents, children and babies all die, torn apart, contorted with pain.
Churches, hospitals, schools, factories, they're all destroyed. Teachers, nurses, students, and hundreds of foreigners are all dead. Horses, cows, beloved dogs and cats, birds and insects. They've all died too. And even the people who are lucky enough to escape die one after another due to radiation exposure. Or they live to suffer the late effects to this very day.
Can you believe that the lives of 10,000s of people, their lives, their dreams, their hopes, could be snuffed out in an instant by the explosion of a single bomb?
Everything has changed as a result of the invention of the atomic bomb. Now, human beings can eradicate instantly all the life prospering on this beautiful planet. War springs from a spirit of hatred and conflict. Atomic bombs were born from a spirit of fear and doubt. But human beings are also capable of love, trust, understanding, and tolerance. It is in this spirit of love that we will bring world peace, and that will make atomic bombs unnecessary.
I am Nagasaki. I open my arms and accept with a smile and a prayer. My wish is a wish for a peaceful world without nuclear weapons. I have taken the pain and grief of the atomic bombing and turned it into love. Oh, people of the world, will you join me in this love?
Okay. Thank you for the story, Larry and Katie. If you are able to, we would invite you to stand. If you're not able to, that's fine as well. We are going to have a moment of silence for the victims, both those who survived and those who had passed. Both of these populations in Nagasaki are called hibakusha. And we want to just send a little thought and goodwill of peace. We will mark our silence with the ringing of the bell that the sister city has received from Nagasaki. Thank you. You can be seated if you'd like. Our next guest is Caren Stelson, a member of SPNSCC and an author of the award-winning young adult book, Sachiko, a Nagasaki Bomb Survivor Story. She has, as was mentioned, just published a picture book of this story, of Sachiko's story. It's called A Bowl Full of Peace.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for everyone to be here. As you know, tonight we are commemorating the atomic bombings, the atomic bombing of the city of Nagasaki at the end of World War II, a bombing by the United States, 3 days after the atomic bombing of the city of Hiroshima. The two bombings together incinerated about 200,000 people, with more people continuing to die from radiation exposure as the years unfolded. We are here also to commemorate and to bear witness to the hope and prayer that the insanity of nuclear war never happens again. The bombing of Nagasaki took place at 11:02 on August 9th in the morning, 75 years ago. There's a 14-hour difference between here and Nagasaki. And so tonight we gather in the evening because the people of Nagasaki are gathering in the morning right now in friendship with us to commemorate and to think about world peace and the hope that peace will bring to all of us. One of the survivors of the Nagasaki atomic bomb was a 6-year-old little girl named Sachiko Yasui. Sachiko grew up to be a peacemaker and a friend of mine, and really a friend of all of ours. She was invited to the Twin Cities for the 60th anniversary of the atomic bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And she was here to tell her story. Sachiko and I reconnected in 2010. I reached out to her and I thought we needed to hear her story for all of us and for the children here in the United States. And she agreed to tell me her story as long as she could look into my eyes, which meant I needed to go to Nagasaki and we needed to work together. For 5 years we met together, and she told me her story through the dedicated interpretation of, and translation of Dr. Takayuki Miyanishi, whom we heard just a few minutes ago. Takayuki Miyanishi, as you know, is the president of the Nagasaki St. Paul sister city. That book was published in 2016. And tonight, Oliver and I will read the newly released A Bowl Full of Peace, which is a retelling of Sachiko's story in picture book form, illustrated by Akira Kusaka from Osaka, Japan, and published again by Carol Rhoda Books, Lerner Publishing Company. And the illustrations will be shared by Carol Hinz, my fantastic editor at Carol Rhoda. I'm joined today with Oliver Verrett. Oliver, will you introduce yourself and let us know how old you are and what grade you're going into?
Well, I'm Oliver. Wait, is this great? Can you hear me? All right. And I'm 10, and I just turned 10 today, and I'm going into 5th grade.
We will begin by filling this bowl, as you see in the middle of the labyrinth, and we're going to fill it with ice crystals, and you'll soon understand the significance of that. A bowl full of peace. There's one word, Japanese word, that you will hear repeated, and I'd like to share it with you. It's itadakimasu. This word is traditionally spoken before eating a meal, and it means we humbly receive this food. No one knows how old grandmother's bowl is. No one remembers who made it. No one can count how many times the bowl has passed from mother to daughter, but everyone knows grandmother's bowl is precious.
The city of Nagasaki sits along the Sea of Japan. Mountains rise up around the harbor, and houses made of wood with paper windows dot the hillsides. On hot afternoons, Sachiko and her brothers, Aki and Ichiro, chase dragonflies as cicadas buzz their summer song.
In the evenings, Sachiko's family gathers together. Mother places grandmother's bowl in the middle of the low table. As always, the bowl offers good things to eat: squid, eel, octopus, and udon noodles. Sachiko and her family press their hands together and bow their heads. They whisper.
As Sachiko grows older, the sounds of war come to Nagasaki. The clanging of hammers building torpedoes, the marching of soldiers training for battle, the cries of those whose husbands, father, and brothers have been killed in the fighting.
War for Sachiko means less and less of everything. Now grandmother's bowl offers only bits of mackerel floating in broth. But the family is still together. Even Sister Misa and little Toshi learn to press their hands together.
Itadakimasu. The sounds of war grow ever closer. The grunts of boys and girls digging air raid shelters into the hillsides. The wail of air raid sirens echoing through the city. The rumbles of enemy bombers flying overhead. Sachiko is eager to start school, but after the first day, the school closes. Too dangerous, says the principal as he looks up at the sky.
The family still gathers each night for the evening meal. Now grandmother's bowl offers only wheat balls floating in boiled water. Mother says, "Eat everything, children. Every bit is precious." Sachiko and her family press their hands together and bow their heads. Summer comes again. The hot month of August arrives. On August 9th, Sachiko's father visits a sick friend. Mother prepares breakfast. Aki, Achiro, and Sachiko wait at the low table. So do Misa and little Toshi. Suddenly the air raid siren begins to wail. Everyone runs for shelter. They leave everything behind, even grandmother's bowl. Together, they huddle in the cave with their neighbors, hoping no bombs will fall from the sky. Finally, a siren blares, all clear. Everyone sighs.
Outside, Sachiko's friends ask if she would like to play house. Yes, she would. Sachiko and her friends laugh together and make mud dumplings with their small hands.
An enemy bomber rumbles high above the clouds. No one notices until it is too late.
Sachiko looks around her. What happened?
Father, Mother, Sachiko, and Misa survive. Brothers Aki and Achiro do too, but not Toshi. Little Toshi is killed in the blast. Through the day and into the night, fires burn across the city. Early in the morning, Sachiko's father makes a decision. We must leave Nagasaki. A train is coming to take us away from the city. We must go now. Follow me.
Everywhere, people are suffering. I'm so thirsty, voices whisper. Water, please, please, water.
In a small hospital away from Nagasaki, Sachiko's brothers are now very sick. No one understands why. No one understands it's because of the radiation from the bomb. Aki dies. Then Achiro dies. Sachiko and Sister Misa become ill, and so do Mother and Father. Ice chips help soothe their burning throats, but nothing can stop the pain, not even the end of the war.
2 years pass before Sachiko's family returns to Nagasaki. Sachiko's father digs through the rubble that was once their home. Something glimmers in the dust. Something green and shiny. Grandmother's bowl! It has survived without even a chip or a crack.
Everyone in Sachiko's family has touched this bowl. Everyone has eaten from it. Even Aki, Achiro, and little Toshi. At their evening meal, Sachiko's mother places the precious bowl in the middle of a wooden crate. Sachiko and her family press their hands together and bow their heads. As cicadas sing their summer song, another August 9th arrives. In the morning, Sachiko's family kneels in front of the wooden crate. This time, Sachiko's mother fills grandmother's bowl with ice. Sachiko's mother speaks softly. We must never forget what happened on this day. Remember how a chip of ice eased our thirst? As the ice melts, let us remember all who suffered and all who died. We must pray that such a terrible war never happens again.
5 years pass. The radiation from the bomb makes more people sick. Sachiko's sister becomes ill and dies. Another 5 years pass. Sachiko's father becomes ill and dies. Each August, Sachiko's mother fills grandmother's bowl with ice. Sachiko and her mother watch the ice melt. Together, they remember what happened. Together, they pray for peace.
Then Sachiko's mother becomes ill and dies. In August, Sachiko fills grandmother's bowl with ice. She bows her head as the ice melts.
Grandmother's bowl is now Sachiko's to care for. Sachiko fills grandmother's bowl with good things to eat, just as her mother did. She presses her hands together and bows her head. Itadakimasu.
On August 9th, 50 years after the war's end, Sachiko fills grandmother's bowl with ice. She can no longer be silent about what happened to her. She must tell her story. The world must know that such a bomb can never be used again. That evening, Sachiko stands before a group of children and shares her story for the first time. She begins, "What happened to me must never happen to you."
And the children listen.
Thank you. And thank you to Oliver. Thank you for such a good reading. You stay, yeah, for sure. I don't know how far this is going to go, but Joanne, and Oliver, why don't you stand here? I would like to present to Joanne as president of the St. Paul Nagasaki Sister City, and to all of you who are members, a likeness of Grandmother's Bowl, which is in the center of this beautiful labyrinth, right there, filled with ice crystals. This bowl is a symbol of hope and peace, and I hope we can use it every year in our during our ceremonies as that symbol of hope and peace from Nagasaki. I'd like to tell you a little bit about this bowl. It is representative of the real grandmother's bowl, and it was created by a Twin City ceramicist, a wonderful artist, who may be here but would like to be anonymous in his creation because there is no signature on the original grandmother's bowl. And so our artist be anonymous in the creation of this bowl. But I would like Joanne, if you would like to pick up the bowl, and then Oliver and Carol, would you join Joanne and walk around the circle so everyone can have a look at this bowl? And then Joanne, afterwards, will you give us directions for the end of the program?
Thank you, Greg. Okay, to move on, thank you, Caren, Oliver, Joanne, and Carol. We have the ceremony every year at the Global Harmony Labyrinth because this is one of the 3 places at Como Park that symbolizes the sister city relationship that St. Paul has with Nagasaki. So we have the labyrinth here, but we also have the cherry trees, which is actually just kind of adjacent to us who take the sidewalk across the pond there. And then we also have the Japanese garden, the Ordway Japanese garden, which is just outside the conservatory. Cynthia McKean is the designer of the labyrinth, and she will be coming up to talk about the design. Please do not walk the labyrinth. As you can kind of tell with the lines, there's no way to practice social distancing with it, so we do not advise you walk the labyrinth. But you're welcome to come back later with a small group or on your own.
Thank you all for coming this evening. I was asked to do a short description of the symbology of the labyrinth. If any of you would like more information, go to the St. Paul Nagasaki Sister City website. On the home page, you'll see Public Works and the Global Harmony Labyrinth. And there are about 30 pages of some of the history and the derivation of the idea of walking this path. I'll try to be brief, but since many of you have not been here before, I'll give you a couple ideas. The labyrinth has come down through time as a metaphor for the journey. St. Paul, Nagasaki, Sister City, has been engaged in a very special journey since it was created in 1955. Those who laid the groundwork for this were inspired and brave. In a post-war world left with terrible wounds on all sides, the forging of this first friendship of its kind was a big step toward healing. With the creation of the Peace Charter in 1989 came the commitment to work for the realization of global harmony, another step along a long path. The people of Nagasaki have offered hospitality of the highest order to many of us through the years. Some of us have experienced in common the remarkable feeling of hope upon leaving the Peace Museum there to walk on a street named after St. Paul. The street is only one site in Nagasaki honoring our relationship, but it is an important one. The naming of streets is highly symbolic, a public acknowledgement of a city's commitment to an idea. We had a street named for Nagasaki for some years, but development changed that. With its loss, the committee began to search for an idea that would come together to create an experience of spirit of place for our guests from Nagasaki. Simultaneously, the renewed interest in labyrinths came to the fore, and the committee decided to pursue a labyrinth project. The creation of a new labyrinth was thought of our reaching out to another culture with differing history, religious traditions, and life outlooks, a fresh gesture of abiding friendship. There has been a lot of discussion through the years. There was a lot of work. Actually, there's no handbook on how to design a labyrinth. Christianity has introduced most of us to the labyrinths we know just in common knowledge. Although Christianity has a remarkable history in Nagasaki, it is only one of several faiths embraced by the populace. The Global Harmony design attempts to bridge all faiths. To describe its elements, the sphere that we're standing on represents the earth. The line expressing yin-yang down the middle represents the relationship of opposite elements, mutually essential to the wholeness of both. The hands represent human effort to maintain balance. If you look at it, an illustration of it on the boulder as you come in, you'll see two hands. Each hand is representing a hemisphere, and they are located on the sphere as if it were the earth, with the entrance being at an angle as if the earth were on a tilt that it rotates on. So no one hand ever has the upper hand. Think of two hands holding a ball as it moves. There is no conscious effort to create numerical meanings as are found in many labyrinths. The messages here concern global friendship and peace. The only other thing I'll say about this project is we all keep learning with this labyrinth. It has not been spawned easily. And global harmony may be one thing, local harmony can be quite another. This year, as I've come and gone and watched what's going on and tried to see how the labyrinth is being used, I've seen many parents and children because they have time together, and perhaps that is one benefit of this awful COVID time in our lives. I saw a young father pushing his baby buggy through the entire labyrinth, talking the whole time to that baby. And I thought, who would ever have thought of that as a use for a labyrinth? Tonight, because you can't walk the labyrinth, it's a place that requires some real cooperation for a crowd to make it work. We have small laminated labyrinths that you can take home with you, and you can walk it with a pencil. The last thing I'll say is the design for this was inspired by my studies in Denmark. Niels Bohr, who won a Nobel Prize in physics, worried the rest of his life about where his discoveries were going to take us, and they indeed took us to a tough place. He should have had a Nobel Prize for peacemaking as well, because he spent all of his life working on that issue. We're in a time when science and the humanities need to come together, and he was the perfect example. One of his students, a physicist, wrote a short group that my Japanese friends call Danish haiku. It was a takeoff on Hamlet. Instead of to be or not to be, it was coexistence or no existence. Thanks for working for peace.
Thank you, Cindy. To close tonight, we are going to walk from one end of the labyrinth to the other, and you'll be asked to follow the gentleman with the Veterans for Peace flag. And we'll make our way to the center, and then we will exit the labyrinth. We have copies of the labyrinth. If you'd like a small laminated square, they're right next to the peace bell, underneath the duct tape. And then we welcome you back tomorrow at 10 a.m. because we have the Meditation for Peace, which is hosted by Nancy of Miracles for Peace. And we will participate in an international bell ringing at 11:02 a.m. Thank you for coming.